been. So,
You've never been to Leicester?
I have now, and I can see the football ground.
You want to be careful of your carbon footprint, you, mate.
Oh,
2 nights in a holiday doesn't get better than that. Welcome to the Fallout Podcast, episode 70. The spare room is fine, though a little haunted. It's a futile fall showdown, all 525 songs approximate, going head-to-head in an ultimate, probably to be repeated, showdown, split into 4 ears, 7785, 8693. I don't even like eras. I don't like to talk about it. It's a mojo thing. Joined tonight by Michaud Pippington, latex rugby. He bought it off the Baptist. What do you got to say for yourself?
I bought it off the Baptist, but my grin is elf.
Beautiful. Lord Sage Temple, irrelevant to latent sex and shock your lizard.
Shit in a shave.
Sometimes it's all you need. T-Bone Pemberton Walker, a walker in the home of walkers with a particular goatish smell. What do you say for yourself?
as little as possible, usually.
And Tiny Tim Twa, Bonjello complexion. Is he with us?
He squeezed his way in today, yeah.
Beautiful. And I'm Tiny, big 3 beards. It was always going to be a matter of time. But before we get into stuff, maybe 20 or 30 minutes on a band that only has a vague connection to the fall. Why not? Phil, what are we doing tonight?
Well, I've been volunteered to do Futures and Past on the Doors, possibly because they're one of the names on my personal Fallout bingo card, and it's not unknown for me to make references. So tonight, picked a few Doors tunes to listen to that we can kind of mull over in terms of their influence on the Fall. So the Doors were a band from the 60s in America. They famously met at UCLA Film School. Ray Manzarek, who played keyboards, and Jim Morrison, who was some kind
of the Doors
wannabe shame poet. Do you believe the mythology? I'm just going to talk about the mythology because that's all important for this, isn't it? So I thought I'd start off with I'm not going to go for the usual suspects, hopefully, today. I'm going to play some different kinds of tunes, but just stuff that I think accentuates the kind of influence on the Fall. I'm going to start off with a track off the second album, on Strange Days, and it's the title track off that. To destroy. So hopefully at the start of that you heard the toms playing away with a very nice crash cymbal at the end, which always reminds me of Figure Walks Behind You and the type tom layering. So it's John Densmore was the drummer at the Doors. I think one of the things, Robbie Krieger is the guitarist. I think one of the things that's really important to remember with them is the fact that Robbie Krieger was a classically trained guitarist, a flamenco style guitar. He always played with his fingers for that plectrum. John Densmore, a jazz drummer, on the first single that they put out, Break On Through, is a bossa nova beat instead of a standard rock and roll beat. And the other thing that they're famous for was Morrison's love of poetry. And I'm going to play, I want to play a couple of different tunes here. So I'm going to play a little bit of another track called False Latitudes, which is more of a spoken word one, really, the same old.
When the still sea conspires in armor, and her sullen and aborted currents breed tiny monsters, true sailing is dead. Awkward instant, and the first animal is jettisoned. Legs furiously pumping their stiff green gallop.
So you can already start to hear this sort of love of spoken word textures, almost skittish kind of approach to some of the pieces that put it together. Morrison's love of kind of juxtaposing soft spoken word with screeching, banshee type cries on top, all of which I think has influenced Doors and their approach to, the Fall and their approach to writing stuff. I've got a couple of other tunes that I wanted to play as well. You want to see what anybody else has got to say before I do that?
Yeah, why not? It's Ezra. Have they been a band you've ever been into, or see any connection to these Fall chaps?
Yeah, I can certainly see a connection. I never really thought about it, like the Doors are one of those bands that their whole like mythos and legendary status, it kind of eclipses the artistic value or the musical value of much of their work for me, because you have to contend with, at least I don't know how things are now, but when I was growing up and going through my musical fandom days as a teenager, it was very difficult to escape Doors posters, Doors t-shirts. It was around the time that Oliver Stone released, I think it was Oliver Stone, wasn't it? Who did the Doors Jim Morrison movie with Val Kilmer. Musically, when I got around to listening to them, the first two albums I'm quite fond of. And I would listen to them again. I like that kind of jazz drumming. The ubiquity has just always kind of stopped me from really rooting down into them, I think.
Well, one thing that I say is they are known, like the Fall, as a student band, in the sense that they're a band that a lot of people get into when they're in college or university, and they have a Doors phase or a Fall phase, and that's used to dismiss them sometimes. But I think it's wonderful stuff, and that cabaret edge with the spoken word poetry, that's why I see comes through a lot in Smithy's stuff, and like things like what was the song that ripped off Love Street that we listened to the other week? Some of it is blatant. It's clear that this was an influence on Craig and Steve and Mark.
Yeah, so the next tune that I picked as well riffs on some other ideas as well, like the love of the occult and sort of like folk imagery, that type of thing. So the next tune that I'm going to play is Not to Touch the Earth off the third album, Wave the Sun. So they were around for about 3 years, and they did 6 albums in that time. It's like 6 studio albums. And this third one, Not to Touch the Earth, actually lifts lines from The Golden Bough by J.G. Fraser. But what I find interesting is the arrangement on it, because I think because they're not from your standard sort of blues. They were a blues band, they did blues albums, but because they had these other influences, well, you'll start to hear on this that the guitar approaches it in a very different way.
Not to touch the earth, not to see the sun, nothing left to do but run, run, run. Let's run. Let's run. House upon the hill, moon is lying.
So they've got this like much more theatrical, like you say, cabaret involved style of writing songs and performance in particular. And I think in a lot of the live Doors stuff, you can hear how he holds the attention of the crowd. Very similar where we've used the word shamanic for into talking about Smithy, and that's something that perhaps Morrison leaned a bit too heavily on, a bit too on the nose, perhaps with some of this stuff. But the last bit that I want to play is just a reference to those cheesy little breaks that they put in, which I think is another Fall-ism that is right, which I think they've lifted, and perhaps wouldn't have the same level of confidence that a band like this would.
I love the friends I have gathered together at this thin route. We have constructed pyramids in honor of our escaping. This is the land where the Pharaoh died.
they sort of effortlessly slip between that brooding darkness and then the absolute cheeseball cabaret that comes in. So a well-known group. Hopefully, a few tracks there that kind of shine a light on some of their other stuff, which I think is probably where.
What, Alistair? Have you got any time for these youngsters?
Yeah, that would be like very complimentary about them and say I think they're fucking shit. Not time whatsoever for the Doors. Completely up its own arse. I mean, the phrase that like springs to mind when I think of Jim Morrison is one that Ken on WFMU sort of like put up for like the track listing for a John Lennon song, which is another alcoholic wife beater, and I think that's about the nearest thing you get to the Fall with the Doors. Reminds me a bit of Chester Dave at time. Morrison's best thing was his supermarket, and he started the Vietnam War as well. So,
all in all, we all think they're great, and they're just like the Fall in many ways. All right, well, let's leave on a high note then and move into. Thank you, Philip, for that. It was delightful. Let's move on to tonight's playlist. So we have My New House up against Craigness. Couples versus Jobless Mid-30s. Don't get confused. Couples versus Jobless Mid-30s is one song versus Happi SongMark'll Sinkers versus Married 2 Kids. I Can Hear the Grass Grow versus Taken Off. And once again, you ask, why is there so many songs from that last bit? Well, if you were here last time, you'd know. So first up, My New House. Thank you. It's delightful, and as we've all been saying this week, the playlist this week has all in all been a great listen, and this is a highlight. So Pip has his customary My New House, This Nation's Saving Grace, 1985.
Yeah, it's great when this track kicks off, and it really I've heard it tons of times before, but this week I think it was after was it last week, the Sonic Youth thing? I really could hear Sonic Youth in this track. It was that was the main thing that sort of jumped out to me as my new.
But it felt they did a cover.
Did they really?
I'll have a listen. I'll have a listen in a minute, but carry on talking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think it's great when it comes in. The stripped down sound really works. It's very catchy and repetitive. I think Mez is there and he's doing his thing. I don't think it's the best showing on Mez, to be honest with you. And I had a bit of a shill bottle experience with it as well, to be honest with you. First couple of times it was great listening to it, and then after a few listens, I was thinking it drags on a little bit. This, and it's only really one idea that they keep sort of drilling in. So I'd have moments that kind of really find it catchy and nice. Then other moments think, is it going to do anything else? This track. Then it sort of picks the tempo up about a minute and a half in, doesn't it? There's a slight sort of speed up in the track, and I quite like the bass line as well. It's quite a lopsided arrangement for it, which I think works really well. But it's just missing something else from me, this tune. It just goes on a little bit too long for a pop song. But the other thing I spotted with it is the reference to number 13 at the end, and I wondered if that was a Mr. James reference from the story Number 13. That's what Mr. Reagan hanging himself, whether it's that's a pop at politics or not, I'm not quite sure. But I think it's a nice pop song, but they've done much better, and it's not much, it's all right.
No, in some ways, maybe it does suffer a little bit from a lot of what This Nation's Saving Grace does, and that's why it hasn't done quite as well, I think, as some of the earlier albums. Even though the songs are there might be something missing a little bit in the production. But that's our taste, isn't it? Because the man on the street thinks it's their best record. So what do we know? Well, let's have a listen to Sonic Youth. So basically, when Sonic Youth did that Peel session where they covered Fall songs, this is one of the songs they chose, but we didn't like that. So when we talked about them for like 25 minutes, we didn't mention that at all. Maybe we do like it. Let's have a listen. Maybe. So they more or less turn it into the glitter band, beefing it up. Does that do it for you, Pip?
That's quite nice. Yeah, it's a bit lively, isn't it?
What I didn't like about these Sonic Youth covers is that they try to sing like Mark Smith, which is, one of the best things about Sonic Youth is that mix of Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon's kind of voices. I don't need to hear them pretending to be Mark Smith. Ezra, what do you make of My New House?
I think it's really fucking special. Yeah.
Sorry, man. He just been slagging off Sonic Youth for doing an impression of Marky Smith, and then introduces you doing an impression of Marky Smith.
Hey, listen, it is what it is. No one's here to listen to me.
Excellent.
I'm usually impressions, so that just went straight over my head. Yeah,
I've had too much coffee this morning.
Yeah, no, fucking great. I mean, the only thing it's missing is a Donald Pleasance reference. It's fucking great. Yeah, like one thing I love is the lyrics. It goes straight into like he's just singing about his house, and he's like, and I get miffed at the damn polyester fills. The interior is a prison unconscious. Interior is a prison unconscious. And then he just zips straight back into the chorus. My new house. You should see my new house. Wash the drawers of pills. It's got windowsills. And yeah, I just love that the interior is a prison unconscious bit. It's fucking brilliant. And it's brilliant the way that he just gets into it and then basically just leaves it there. And it is back to the neighbors hanging themselves or whatever. Fucking brilliant. One of the best CNN tracks, I reckon. It's definitely it's up there with the Containers and their Drivers and some of the very excellent tracks. So 5 thumbs up from me.
I'll give you. I'm calling it best song on that album. We don't really know how he feels about his new house, which is good. The ambiguity is.
He doesn't like getting them bills, though, does he?
Oh, who does? Who does, Phil? Come on, don't get me started. Alistair, what do you think about the poll tax?
The poll tax was very interesting. William Pitt, what's his name? What Tyler? That's a fucker. That's the original poll tax, I think. I think it's a follow-up from No Bulbs, because it's like going on about No Bulbs in this flat, like, and then kind of like moved on to like getting his new house. And it's a very nice song about a new house, and you should see it. But it really reminds me of an ex. This one, like, who bought a new house, like, and it was like 2 songs off this Nation Saving's Grace, which like really sort of like to me it was like theme tune for her. So it was My New House and Spoiled Victorian Child. But I think you've both been a bit harsh with.
No, you're being harsh. If we're talking about harshness here, I hope
this kitten's got claws.
Take me a bit south of Wigan, and this is what happens to me.
Exactly. It's a hidden track called Cut It Out.
I think Phil's a bit unfair really with saying it's like just like one idea, because I mean, like,
you started it with the Doors.
I know, yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're falling on for repetition, aren't they? And like just like proper going for it with a riff, like, and sticking with it and getting the groove out of it. And they do extract some very nice grooviness, like, it's like rough, really lovely guitar sounds on it. It's just like that proper dirty, scratchy, slightly out of tuney feel to it, like, which really ticks boxes for me, and like I'm dead surprised that more bands don't do. This is kind of did it a little bit, but they were still like far more melodic, more poppy. But yeah, I think it's a damn good song, and it's up against another really stronger.
It is, but I'm with you on all that stuff. I think it's splendid, and I'm going to disagree with Mr. Rigby about the repetition. I think it's repetition done right in this sense. I think I could listen to that.
The Sonic Youth version that you played sounded like well rough. It's like it sounded like a really bad cassette copy that had been stuck down the back of a sofa for 15 years.
Like the kind of thing you'd love.
Well, yeah. Generally it is like, but there's clearer versions where you can actually hit drums a bit, and it's worth checking that out. And I've got a bit like a bit of vinyl.
Right, don't tell it, don't buddy advertise it. It's illegal. Home taping is killing music.
Got a naughty record.
I like the unusual arrangement, and I think it kind of is a good bridge between the old and new Fall. I think it does have that wonkiness and doesn't doesn't quite go as smooth as some stuff on the album. I think it's Craig, probably just Dirty in the Water enough. It's nice, but it's not nice. And it kind of, that kind of pulsating beat that just kind of trudges along. And yeah, Smith, although vocally maybe he doesn't, I think that laid back thing, it works, but maybe a little bit more lively, could have done something else with it. But I think his lyrics saved the day anyway. The Halifax copter, sewer dropped me a cropper. Because I mean, if you're of our generation, you probably remember what that means, right? Maybe not Halifax, no, the Halifax one. Then there was the other one, I think, was for double glazing windows, right, where the chap landed the helicopter. There was a spate of helicopter-related adverts in the 80s. Barrett's, right?
Yeah,
Does he mention Barrett's in this as well? I don't think he does.
No, I don't think he does.
Creosote tar fence surrounds it. The razor blades eject when I press eject. The spur room is fine, though a little haunted, by Mr. Reagan, who hung himself at number 13. Yeah, interesting stuff. Good, sweet.
It's a great Emma James story, number 13. Well,
it's the one where where the room only appears at certain times, right? Or
it's where he can see somebody from his room in a room that's nearby. Something's happening in room 13.
And he goes in, and in the night time he can go in and find 13, but then the next morning there's only 12 and 14. It's a fun one. Shall we see what Tim thinks?
Yeah. So I shall open the golden envelope and reveal his view. He says, "My new house, weird stuff, clattering and shambling, and sounds at odds with the album somehow. I've never really liked it much. Seems to lack any sort of substance beyond just the one line over and over. But I really enjoyed it this week. It was sort of hypnotic, confusing shit."
Yeah, it's divided us in a good way, but it is up against a much less well-known, though still delightful tune, Craigness, off Escape Route EP, and also on the wonderful Frightening Some versions back in 1984.
Neighbor downstairs with one eye, coat hats with a mass of blonde curls. Ooh,
Very sweet indeed, Ezra. Craigness.
This is a real gem, I think. The musically, it's like someone threw a spanner in the Jungle Pop works. It just it's got such an interesting arrangement to my ears.
Very Barrettish, I thought. Very Syd Barrett.
Yeah,
definitely that. And the whole, Smith's delivery as well is really nice and kind of upfront. And lyrically, it's really arresting, but I'm not at all sure what it's about. The first time I heard this track, which was maybe a couple of years ago, when I got the version of The Wonderful and Frightening, which also has that track on, I was really enjoying the whole album. It's the first time I'd ever heard it, which was a glaring omission. And this track I really loved. And I loved it also for the fact that it's referencing a great movie, Dead of Night. Maybe I shouldn't have said great movie. It's a great B movie. And if you like horror and slasher movies, you will really enjoy it. And Donald Pleasance in this movie, I think he's based on the kind of R.D. Laing school of like real progressive, like kind of psychiatrists and psychologists who came up from the 60s under the influence of the whole psychedelic revolution and tried really kind of liberal, had really kind of liberal attitudes to insanity, which, I think there's a strong argument that was a good pushback against the state of like caring for the mentally ill that we were in at that time. But, some of them pushed it a little bit too far. And Donald Pleasance is playing this kind of guy, and he's just sitting in his office getting stoned with the new doctor on his weird Indian peace pipe. And he's like, yeah, it's like the wise men say, mind moving fast is crazy, mind moving slow is saint, but mind stopped. And then he goes into a Donald Pleasance stare, and he's like, it's God. And for me, that's like one of the greatest moments in cinema. So, and it was actually a piece of dialogue that I sampled and used extensively for a while in like my own performances. So it was wonderful to hear that again. But even without that, with this kind of like loping kind of psychedelia with this kind of effects overload at the end, I think it's a glorious piece of weirdness.
Beautiful. You said Dead of Night, but I think the Donald Pleasant ones is a different title, because I think isn't Dead of Night the one where it is a psychiatrist and it's like a portmanteau. It has a bunch of smaller stories in it. The one with the I only said that because Smith
might be right.
Smith mentions Dead of Night.
What's the name of that?
So the one with all the bits in it, like it has the talking ventriloquist dummy, is called Dead of Night. But the one that you're describing, I can't remember what that one's called.
Is that Asylum?
That's great, that one. It's got Pat Weasel in it, hasn't it? And Robert P.O.D.C.A.S.T.
Yes, I've seen that. It's Asylum, that one. It's a cracker, that. I've not, because I was trying to think what the other one was with Donald Pleasant saying, because I don't think I've seen that one. I want to watch that.
Well, the Asylum one, if you're talking about with Donald Pleasance, I don't know that one, but maybe that's what we're talking about. But the one Dead of Night, Smith mentions in Renegade, as they don't make films like that anymore. So I went and watched it. I think I'd seen it before. I hadn't seen it for years, but it's got 4 or 5 short stories that are all based around. They're all tied back in together. This overarching theme, but
just don't make portmanteau films anymore.
No, big ones, not at all. But yes, we digress. What about Alistair? What do you think of Craig?
I believe it's Alone in the Dark.
Okay, nice.
That's the Pleasant,
yeah.
Pleasant,
That's good.
Yeah, Donald Pleasant used to look like that goalkeeper from Man United. I can't remember his name. But yeah, Craig, this charming little ditty in it. It reminds me a little bit sort of like a skiffly kind of number, like, but kind of like slow skiffle. Not sure if there's like drums used on the brushes, but I do like the sort of like minimal snare bass drum approach with the drums. It's like dead bass led. Great performance from the group. I really like the production because it's dead unfussy, dead natural sounding. And at the end, there's no fade out. You just got loads of shitty noise and then cutting it off dead. Fucking fantastic.
That's what you want, isn't it? It's cop out that fade out stuff.
Yeah, rubbish stuff.
No, absolutely. Like I said, it reminded me a lot of Syd Barrett, and although it isn't an acoustic, I don't think there might be one buried in the mix there, but it does feel like it's an acoustic-y kind of tune. Similar, like we were just saying on the last one, which is a wonky kind of acoustic thing, and it has that kind of gentle and meandering in a weird, unsettling kind of way, and some very unnecessary but beautiful shouting about 2.5 minutes in, which I loved. Digs a deep groove, and apparently, from what F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T saying, is it does again talk about an apartment they lived in. So that's 2, possibly 3 this evening that talk about where they lived. And of course, as long as My New House, he wrote Second House Now later. Like, is that on New Facts Emerge? Maybe a little bit earlier. But anyway, delightful tune that I didn't really know. Probably heard it a few times through the years, but certainly not one I was super familiar with. How about Timothy?
He's put phenomenal track. Oozes atmosphere and weirdness. The synced up bass and guitar sound wonderful. I love the way the vocals are multi-tracked too to make a chorus of mez. Wistful and introspective in the back, building to that magnificent screech up front. Is this the day in the life moment with that magnificent ending? I think it's a rhetorical question.
No, is the answer, but it's good.
That's a rhetorical answer.
Exactly. Sweet indeed. And what do you think, Philip?
Yes, I really like this. The first thing I've written down is "Don't Say Country Teasers Who Are," because I think this is another tune that they've obviously taken to heart. I get the Barrett thing. I didn't make that connection actually whilst I was listening to it, but I tell you what, it reminds me a little bit more of is when sort of post-part life, Blur wanted to. They had a little bit of a Syd Barrett thing, didn't there? There's a few tunes on there with Ray and Syd Barrett. Reminds me a bit more like that, because it's a bit more together than anything Syd Barrett actually recorded on his own. It actually resolves in places, doesn't it? And it's quite a beautiful arrangement. Yeah, like you, I love that Juxtapoz screaming for no apparent reason whatsoever. I think perfectly. I love the sort of, it's very lo-fi, isn't it? Cardboard box sort of drums, and yeah, and I picked up on the vocal layering as well, which I think works great on this track. For my money, I'm going to tell you now, I just think this works better than the previous one. I just think more interesting things going on, and I looked forward to this one.
Indeed. Just having a look at that track list of that EP, The Wonderful and Frightening Escape Route 2, it's got Oh Brother, Creep, Pat Trip Dispenser, No Bulbs, Drago's Guilt. That's a pretty damn nice EP. Doesn't list Craigness here though, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe that's something's going awry. Or maybe Craigness was on the original one, and I was getting myself mixed up there. Amateurs in the amateur hour over here.
This is where Danny when you need him.
Exactly. Anyway, it was released at some point by the Fall, and
some record by some.
Yeah, some music and shit.
So when this first popped up, as much as I like Craigness, I thought it would be an easy win for My New House, but I'm not feeling that way right now. You've already kind of made it clear, Philip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about Tim?
He's also going for Craigness.
Ooh, what about Alistair?
Oh, I'm going to get a bit of balance going here. I'll go for My New House.
Okay.
You know it's a cover.
And Ezra more or less got the deciding vote because I'm going My New House.
Oh,
pressure!
It was always going to be Craigness for me.
Okay.
I do feel I do feel that My New House may have a strong chance of another bite of the cherry. I would hope so, if we're all right thinking.
Why were you looking at me when you said that?
I was actually looking at the burn, which is by the side of my computer screen. That's the only thing I know that is actually right thinking.
Alrighty, well, that's an optimistic way to look at it, and it does have a chance, but this is a giant killing, no two ways about it. And so Craigness goes through. Interesting, and that brings
good omen. That's a good omen.
It is indeed.
Funky horse trading this week.
Well, you tried to make a case for switching around, as we have 4 songs from that last era. You tried to make a case, but you didn't have any success. And so you tried to get us to move the songs around so that Happi Song would have more of a chance up against Taking Off. But I see where you're going, but Mr. Machiavelli is obviously on his holidays. But let's listen to Couples versus Jobless Mid-30s off New Facts Emerge.
Almost sounded a bit dozy at them, though.
I did a little bit curious, orangey at the same time also, but madness considering this was basically the last album, actually the last album they ever recorded, just before he passed off this mortal coil. And it's up against a song called Happi Song, but he seems pretty happy through most of this. He's like laughing a lot. Alistair, Couples versus Jobless Mid-30s.
An interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, it's all over the place. You know, they kind of like flipping from like sounding a bit like Sabbath to sounding a bit like Johnny Cash to, you know, like some surfy grooves, and Yeah, and it's all there in the mix. Some of the backing vocals are really good as well. Along with all the laughing it was going on about, it really reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever heard it, Diary of a Madman, the Kenneth Williams version of it, the radio drama. That is so fucking off its tits. It's unbelievable.
The Gogol story, the Russian story.
I'm the King of Spare and all that kind of shit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Kenneth Williams version as well. We're checking out.
I'm definitely going to check that out. That's mental.
Oh yeah, no, like the production on the Williams version is brilliant. I think it's a BBC one, like for BBC Radio from probably like late 70s, early 80s. But it's Couples vs Jobless mid-30s it's work of art. I mean, Tiny Tim mentioned Day in a Life before. I think this one's like a lot more like Day in a Life because the way it shifts and moves and. They're touching a lot of again, a lot of interesting areas, aren't there? So it's well worth checking out. If you're interested, it's not like dead straightforward formulaic. Have a listen to this one.
Indeed. Metal E. Smith, I think Phil threatened a list somewhere along the line. It's big riff metal, and it sounds like a collage of all the lads' best metal riffs. He does say he left them to their own devices because I seem to remember them saying, Kieran, Mel in particular, that they were mostly in metal bands and kind of hard rock bands, and kind of tell from some of the stuff. But this is them just indulging their metal fantasies. Although all that's missing is some proper shredding from Greenway. That would have like a 7-minute guitar solo. But he goes more for the doomy, sludgy end of the metal spectrum. Forever Aimless. It just feels like it goes on for days and days and days because each section's only like 30 seconds long or something. So you're like 15 sections in and you're like halfway through the song. But strange and beautiful in a cool way. And that Smith is laughing and then samples of him laughing and then laughing over the samples. And gargoyle legs are droopy, C quality, next they jet, upwardly BT rancid laughter, his grin is elf. Probably not the actual lyrics, but again, sterling work over at the annotated Fall. He says something, Smith says, I left the lads in the studio and that's just them having fun. We got about 7 songs out of it at Castleford and I savaged 3 or 4 of them and stuck them together. Good stuff indeed. And what does Tim think?
Masterpiece.
Really?
Well, it's probably not, but I love it. It's like a prog epic got fucked up on something and birthed this in a filthy cupboard under the stairs in the witch house. Hi-hoo! I can't think of anything else like it. It's rich and surprising all the way through. The way the vocals stack up, the little interjections everywhere, it's just a delight. I might pick to have this played at my funeral to see who loved me enough to sit through it.
Beautiful. I was surprised. I didn't think he'd have time for it, but then again, he's a wily cat, isn't he?
Oh, he's as contrary as the rest of them.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Philip?
It's magnificent, this. I had no idea. I don't really know this album. And so I put it on the first time. And within a couple of minutes, I'm just like, what the actual fuck is going on this record at all? It's, I think what the bit that surprises me the most is how operatic it is. I think Al said epic as a word. It's got that whole spectacle kind of sense about it. All the laughing in the background. It's very chorusy, like a Greek chorus in a theatre. I don't know kind of fucking Scooby's what he's going on about in this song at all, but the lyrics are great. I think I kind of, once I'd locked onto the word operatic, I kind of saw it as a 3-act play, really. And it's like you've got like a doomy start, and then there's like a bit of a post-punky bass and drum transition. You get like a doom reprise followed by a little goblin kind of transition, like from a Dario Argento, and then it goes into this rock surfy kind of exit to it all. So musically, it's utterly incoherent, but works perfectly. It is such a collage and a proper lucky dip of a song. But as with a lot of F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T stuff, it just all magically comes together at the end, and it's endlessly entertaining. I've not got bored of this song for a second. This one, right?
Indeed, yeah. It keeps you interested for the whole of its runtime. Ezra, does it do it for you though? That's the big question here.
Oh, massively. I mean, anything that I'm listening to, and within the first couple of minutes, if the phrase "hot prog mess" comes through my mind, I'll probably really like it. And this is one of the hottest prog messes that's ever crossed my desk. It's been interesting, really, because I've been holding off listening to the last few albums until we get around to doing that for the podcast. But of course, I've heard the songs that we've talked about off these albums. And with New Facts Emerge, it's been really, because if I'm remembering correctly, there aren't actually that many tracks on it. And the stuff we've heard so far that I've remembered has been the first track, Segway, if I'm right, which is basically Marky Smith kind of tinking a wine bottle with a glass, and the Victoria Train Station Massacre, and maybe Zitric Man, which are both okay, but kind of slight, I think. And 9 out of 10, which is a track I would rate very highly.
Yeah.
And this is fucking brilliant. It's an absolute mogadon of a track. And it's also this, Metally Smith is also maybe a part of it, but for me, it's part of the micro genre of couples songs. We've got another one coming up today, Married 2 Kids, and then we've got My Ex-Classmates' Kids, and I'm pretty sure there's quite a few more around there. So all really fucking good.
Ezra, Mogadon, though, in that antidepressants for cats.
Yeah, exactly. His grinner's elf makes 10 copies to his mother spouse. She tortures him in big house. Don't forget that birthday. Look at me, kids. Is irrelevant to your latent sex and shock your lizard.
Indeed.
I think that's from Act 2.
Act 2, Scene 6, Scene 28. I think at this point we've listened to a good chunk of them, because I think there's only Grounds Boy, maybe Folderol left, but we've listened to Segway, Brillo de Facto, Zitric Man, Gibbous Gibson. Gibbous Gibson went through, but there's not many songs gone through, but I think this one's got a chance. But it is up against pretty much the opposite end of the spectrum from about 5 or 6 years earlier, from Ersatz GB, a not very well loved fall album. A song delivered by our delightful Eleni. Let's have a listen. Well, it's beautiful. What can we say? It's a delightful tune, and it's another Eleni tune that you bastards are going to vote out. What can I say? I voted for all of them, whether it's The Right Stuff, whether it's the other one she did. I think she does 3 or 4, right? What was the Right Stuff is one. She sings on Traurig, but on the alternate version. What's the other one she does that I'm thinking of? Not doing well tonight with names and things.
You had a rough night there. He's had a rough night, hasn't he?
He has, bloody has, hasn't he? Anyway, nice muted keys. The boys are now behaving themselves. They got all the metal out of their system 6 years in the future. And this is a very Nico-esque. It's very much like something off that Chelsea Girls or one of the early Nico albums. Mez wailing away in the background. Apparently, Mark called Eleni up from the studio, not sure why she wasn't there, and asked her to sing it over the phone. So she improvised this tune over the phone. It doesn't sound like that, but I'm not going to accuse her of telling porcupines. Anyway, it's brilliant. I love Eleni, even though you people don't. And I think I want more. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Unfortunately, they'd split before the band did, before Mark passed. But I really wonder what, when the boys continued under the name Imperial Wax, what would have happened if it had been Eleni there, and they would have maybe focused a bit more on her stuff and then balanced out with some others. Pretty brilliant. Eleni, we need you to make some records. She probably made a bunch that we don't know about. So.
Yeah, because what's his face? I can't remember what his name is now. The DJ we had on WFMU, didn't he say that?
Brian Turner.
Yeah.
Brian.
Didn't he say that Eleni had been on his show promoting some? So I'm sure she has.
I think she's promoting her radio radio show. I'm going to have a look. I know she's done some music in the past, but I don't know.
She's put some stuff up on Bandcamp recently. I listened to it.
Okay. Delightful.
Yeah.
Well, share us that list that if you can. I'll have a look for it. But enough about what I think. What does Phil Rigby think?
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's I've made some of the same notes that you have, really, in terms of that kind of Nico vibe. That was the first thing that it reminded me of. But it's a very prettily constructed pop song, and it does everything it needs to do. It's got that nice. I think it's been played on the keyboard actually, but I've written a bass trill down there that just keeps the chorus nicely bouncing along. It really reminded me of a bit of like Scottish pop, that kind of tone, maybe like Aztec Camera or something like that kind of arrangement of the music. Whereas like guitar is used a bit more as texture rather than anything more acute in the mix. I really like that wash backing vocal that Mez puts on. I think it just gives the track something else, much like the keyboard gets used in the early days just to lift it. I think that works really well on this. So I think it's a deceptively simple song. I think it's really very beautiful to listen to, and it's a shame that it's going to get absolutely smashed now in this competition.
It is a shame. I think what you're saying there makes a lot of sense. That the Nico stuff was very, very influential on people like Belle and Sebastian, for sure. Like a lot of their early songs are lifted wholesale from her, and that whole scene, all the Delgados, Cara Obscura, and all those kind of people. Yeah, delightful.
It's not stuff I really got into myself, but I had a mate who was properly into it, so I feel like I'm aware of that stuff without knowing it intimately.
Yeah. Was it me?
No.
Oh, we were friends.
Greg Hildreth from the Hartlepool.
Oh yeah,
he loves it.
Alistair, what do you make of this?
I remember a lot of this stuff, like the Camera Obscura and all that kind of stuff from Peel. He used to be, giving him sessions left, right, and centre. Never really did it much for me, though, to tell the truth. But does that matter? But yeah, it's a good one. Like, I did write down Nico myself in my notes. Like, so I think we're all kind of like, we've all come from the same kind of direction on our analysis of this one. But yeah, it's a really sort of well accomplished pop song. But I always have it in my head though, every time I hear a song that's going about why can't you see, like it's like, well, if you're blind and you're listening to this song, it's like they're taking the piss out you, innit?
Yes.
Facts. He's spitting facts today, isn't he?
On fire. So Nico lived in Manchester for a good chunk of time, and she lived with John Cooper Clarke, right? And with I did Welsh bloke. Hunter Davis.
Velvet.
Hunter.
No, what's his name?
John Cale.
John Cale.
But her back
keep smack.
They all
Same right corner from my drummer.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Didn't know you on the shelf.
Brahma and Una Baines were the support band, were her backing band for a good chunk of time in the 80s, were Blue Orchids, right? So there's a very strong Fall Nico connection there anyway, but this is much, much later. And Ezra, what does this one do for you?
Very pretty, very lovely. I would put it on the marquee sentimental list for sure, although of course it is the magnificent Eleni who's providing the vocals here. I would assume that when she says I improvised it over the phone, she meant she improvised the melody and the music and not the actual words, because I think if you could improvise those words on the spot, then you would probably be making a living off of just turning up and like improvising kind of really nice pop songs at the drop of a hat, because that would be very impressive, I think. And yeah, the kind of Marquis Smith, like Marquis Smith doing an impersonation of a drunken person in love, or just being a drunken person in love. And I mean, by drunken, I mean very shit-faced. Just going, oh, in the background is really just fucking glorious as well. Yeah, very nice, very, very nice.
So Phil was probably right to try and force us to put this up against I Can Hear the Taking Off, but it was shut down by Disco Stew, and so we're sticking with it. A vote is needed. Sadly, again, it's not going to go well for non-Smith singing songs, I don't think. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to have a happy song. Alistair, I know I can count on your support here. Which way are you going?
Yeah, Couples versus Jobless mid-30s.
Bastard. Ezra, which way are you going?
Yeah, I'm going for my ex-classmates versus married.
Very good. Philip, it's a done deal, isn't it? Sadly.
It is. I can't. It's the better song. Couples is the better song.
And
Happy.
Disco Stew, which way is he going?
Let's see which way he's gone. He's given Happy 2.5. He's given Couples versus Jobless 10.
So Couples goes through, takes us to the thinner. So all of Eleni's songs are out, but we should do a special on songs not sung by Smith. There's enough good stuff in there. We can pad out this run of podcast episodes without stuff. But we're now up against we're now into the third showdown, which is the B-side from Ghost in My House and a song taken from the Luciani play Mark'll Sinkers, 1987.
The ward was rained with spats of blood. The victim cast a gate and yet part of odds. The thoughts in eyes seen under a hood, but in my own eyes and in my own blood. Mark will sink on.
Mark will indeed. He will
Shall
indeed.
I play a little bit later on with the piano and that?
Aye. Very sweet indeed. Philip, Mark'll Sinkers.
Yeah, I've been totally blown away by this track. To be totally honest with you, this week it surprised me massively. I mean, it starts off and it's a fairly almost Joy Division-y kind of croon, dark, urban vibe, and then sneakily from nowhere, it's like, what the fuck is this jazz going on? It really, really took me by surprise. I think it's strange as well that we've got this and the next track, which are very sort of piano interesting tracks. I'm assuming it's the panpiper extraordinaire who's playing this.
I'm guessing so, because Marsha's on there, but we've not heard that kind of dexterity from her.
It's a very, very accomplished jazz piano playing around the background, and it's just not what you expect from F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T. It's all. It's so anti the Art Brut style we're much more familiar with. But there's the break in it. I thought was very Captain Beefheart, and that comes into it, which again kind of just comes from nowhere. They just drop it in, and the whole. I know that the kind of whole vibe of the Friends thing is about experimenting with song structures, and it works beautifully on this. They really do pull it off. It's a very unusual structure. The arrangement's quite odd. It all comes together though. It really is hand in glove all the way through. I love this strange world that they create. It feels very late night and elegant. Mark is not doing anything particularly different to what he normally does, but it all works really well. It all glues together. And I can't really think of much else like this apart from How on Extricate, which I don't think works as well as this song. I think this is a much better showing for that kind of approach. So again, it's another outlier as far as I'm concerned, but one that is just another little treat to listen to, really.
Yeah, interestingly, so I started earlier because of the nice piano stuff that's going on in Married 2 Kids, which is very unusual for that era. I put it out on Twitter, and Danny never sleeps on a fall question. He's jumped in and says that Simon Rogers and Craig Leon get credit on Code Selfish for production. So I'm guessing that it's Rogers on that one as well. So I think the piano on both of these tracks is the panpiper that playing to his strengths. I guess so.
That tracks.
Ezra, what do you make to Mark'll Sinkers?
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Very fascinating. I was driven to hunt down this track a while ago because of the title, Mark'll Sinker. So I was like, that's you could put that in a can and sell it. You know, what a great way, what a great title for a fall track. And yeah, you're completely blindsided by the kind of like prog rock blues that you hear, and this competent keyboard playing as well. And it kind of seems like I'm pretty sure he's just singing about his own experiences of depression, which is also kind of a rarity for him to get so kind of like, here we go. A message mesmerized on all English breath. The crux pretty grasped, yet mostly misunderstood. Mark will sink us. I am desolate. I live the black and blue of the night. Friend depression comes now and again, once in a blue moon. He points backwards thus. Mark will sink us. So yeah, I mean, to my mind, it seems very much like he's singing about the experience of depression, and in such a kind of comparatively, I mean, if we compare it to the previous Couples versus Jobless mid-30s, I mean, it's pretty plain talky, even My New House. So, but yeah, a fucking great piece of music.
It is. I was thinking this playlist, if somebody didn't really know the Fall and they just knew those first few years, everything up to Slates, which Mark Fisher said is the only stuff you need. It's like, okay, the earliest song on here is Craigness, which is 84. So they'd already been going like 7 or 8 years at that point, by which point most bands are done. Everything on this playlist is that plus the next 25 years. And Taking Off doesn't really do it for me. Maybe I don't need that cover of I Can Hear the Grass Grow. Spoilers. But the first 6 songs on this playlist, you play them to somebody, it's like, you would love the Fall after hearing these 6 songs, unless you're an idiot.
That's the Stockholm syndrome talking.
No true Scotsman fallacy. No true music fan could listen to these songs and not think they're brilliant. Alistair, what do you think? Just before I go on, so the title is a brilliant play on words, Mark'll Sinkers, but it apparently does relate to the Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, who's one of the main characters in his Luciani play. Me and Phil have been digging deep into that. This does come from Luciani, so I wonder how much what you're saying, Ezra, is true. How much of it is him wearing his heart on his sleeve, and how much of it is him playing a character? But we'll never know.
Maybe he's in character.
He'll never tell us, though, and maybe the character is a bit more of himself than he wants to admit. But it is very honest stuff from a man who played his cards close to his chest. And more than once, people will have said Mark'll Sinkers. His choices. Alistair, what do you reckon to this little ditty?
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of like about how Mark Smith was a liability in the band's sort of attitude towards him, but I never really liked listening to the lyrics too much anyway. They pick up on the comment Phil made about the break and saying beef. I wrote down Zappa-esque. Because it has got that kind of like slightly jazzy chord in it, that gives it that feel. But generally, I don't. It's all right. It's a nice, bit slow, spacious groove going on there, but it don't do a great deal for me. It's a little dull for my tastes. But I love Pinky and Perky, so, we used to comment on taste there. In all, it's all right, but it's not outstanding. And the piano on this one and the next one, that's the thing that really ruins it for me.
Bit of Jules Holland.
But a bit too...
Very Jules Holland, yeah. Bit madness, yeah.
Here's what it actually...
At least it's not...
So last week we didn't do a show because I went watching Pavement, and they were really, really good. And this, like if you listen to Pavement's last album, Terror Twilight, this would fit perfectly on there with Magma singing instead of Smith. It is because they always get accused of ripping off early Fall and that scratchy stuff, and I don't necessarily think it's intentional, although they do have a song called The Hex on there, so he still obviously was listening. But yeah, this kind of like nicey kind of faux Zappa-ish spidery guitar lines that are slightly wonky over a jazzy-ish backing. This is beautiful. And that bass line, which, very Joy Division, even something like a slowed down version of something like the Classical or one of those early kind of tracks. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. And the fact that it was just, again, hidden away on a B-side to a single, non-album single, and appeared in the play that was never made available anywhere. Absolutely brilliant. And if it does have a connection to Marcinkus, the Archbishop who is in charge of the Vatican Bank and essentially Boilers murdered the Pope of 3 days. Lyrics are beautiful, and it's hard to get where they're coming from. And like maybe he is playing, this is a character, but letting a little bit of the mask slip. Who knows? And another song, according to the Reformation site, where Mark refers to himself, last commands of MES via Xyloth Rep, The Reckoning, Visitation of American Poets, Shoulder Pads, Slang King, and Latchkey Kid being the others. You're sleeping with some hippie halfway who thinks he's Mr. Mark Smith is still one of my very top and most of the pop and most lyrics. So we didn't hear, once again in my oversight and excitement, I didn't find out what Tim thought of Happi Song, but let's have a double bill. What do you think of these two?
So you got his vote before, but he says, for Happi, I rolled my eyes when I saw this on the playlist, but I have to admit that it's really quite good. I said in the chat yesterday, it sounds like a long-lost Pete Doherty song from an alternative universe, sort of longing for a lost Albion through the lens of Saint Etienne. It's so much better than the right stuff, much more assured and settled in. I like it a lot.
Delightful.
And then he's put for Mark'll Sink Us, another absolute classic. It's like some of the stuff off Friends, but not shit. I have on the 45 that came with the initial pressing of Friends, and inside the record there's some press clippings about the fall from various times. One talks about a show in the 90s where Mark collapsed and was carried off stage. Another 70s, 90s retrospective on them from a newspaper. When I picked it up along with a few other records, this guy in the shop told me Mark Riley had sold to him. Don't know if I believe it. Anyway, the song, it has that lax feeling of steak place, but no cheese. Quiet and considered, and sounds kind of like Faust sketch that has been expanded into mosaic, a bit of poetry. The way the bass changes and drops down is amazing. The jazz descending piano scale. Lovely.
Lovely indeed. It is, have we heard from everyone there?
All
right, good. It is up against Married 2 Kids Off Code Selfish, 1992.
1978 was in a hotel in Notting Hill Gates. Now in 1992, staying in a hotel in Notting Hill Gates. Abject.
Well, it's 1969, okay? Now, last year I was 21 and I didn't have a lot of fun. Now I'm going to be 22 and I say, oh my, and a boo-hoo. Alistair, what do you make
It was the summer I'm 69.
What do you make of this song?
I'm not that keen on the album, really. And normally go, oh yeah, I'm not that keen on this album, but this one's all right. But no, it's the piano. Kind of mentioned it earlier. Quite like the bass line and the drums. The guitar's not like dead imaginative, but yeah, the piano, it's just a bit borderline madness feel to it. What I can work out from the lyrics seem quite amusing, but generally I'm a bit kind of like meh with it. But again, mostly because of the piano, which just it's horrible.
Not horrible. You buffoon. Ezra, come on, give us some facts.
Yeah, I like the piano myself, but I like that kind of cheesy shit. I'm not going to apologize for it. I like it, and it's interesting that this is also another kind of bluesy one, and we're back into this nominal category of fall tracks, which at least have references to marriage in the title. I'm not sure if anything on Couples versus Jobless actually addresses the union. I would have to do further research to explore them.
He's warning you, Ezra.
But yeah, this track, it's interesting that it's kind of bluesy along with Mark'll Sinkers. And it's, I think it's kind of a bit slight, really. I do like the married 2 kids. I pretend to go to work, got a portafax, aftershave like mustard, 2 pints of lager do me in the spirit of man is a pub I go in. I'm married, 2 kids, have a peculiar goatish smell. I'm a long-winded article. I get livid, married, 2 kids. It's pretty much the whole song. And so, those are some quite nice words. I do like the aftershave mustard thing going on there.
At some point, he went from the middle mass being like the worst thing to just married people being the worst thing. He honed in on what it was. It comes in, the guitar's nice and twangy, that staccato-ish piano, some unnecessary rung-out guitars going on in the background, perfunctory, if somewhat funky sigh. It's nice, but I don't think there's a huge amount to it. After I'd listened to it and realised that foot opening of Gambit reminded me of 1969, I just went off and listened to the Stooges for a bit. What else can I say?
Good play. Yeah.
Aye. What do you reckon, someone?
Can I tell you what I think?
Go on.
Because I went on a slightly different angle with this, because when it starts off, the whole production sound of the record, I was like, this Dire Straits shit that's playing here. It's got a very odd, middle of the road kind of feel to it. But then when that second guitar comes in, it suddenly dawned on me what it was actually reminding me of. I think the song and the arrangement would fit perfectly on an album like Lodger by David Bowie. I thought the song, that opening lyric as well, about where he's rhyming the year with Notting Hill Gate, and then he puts the next year in and he still says Notting Hill Gate. I thought it'd be a really funny line, actually, to see him sing with David Bowie. And I thought, of all the songs that we've done so far where I've heard a bit of Bowie in it, this is the one that I'd actually liked to hear them do a duet on. I think this would have been a fun song for them to do it together. And I think that second guitar just sounds like rip off him. It's exactly the same guitar tone. So I just got lost on that thought experiment with it, really, which I thought was quite fun in terms of, we saw what David Bowie could do with Mick Jagger, which was frankly off, and what he could do with Queen, which was great. So
Bing Crosby.
Bing Crosby we'll not talk about, but it would be great to see, because I think Smithy did have a soft spot for David Bowie, didn't he? I think he's one of the people in...
What about that one Bowie did with Michael Jackson?
What's that one?
Sorry to interject.
I don't think David Bowie did any songs with Michael Jackson.
He's making stuff. I was trying to trick me. Well, Bowie didn't do one.
Oh, yeah, all right, okay. I'll shut up now.
No, I did hear yesterday something about Bowie and Jackson. It was like Jackson was like really, really young at the time, and he was asking Bowie about his dance moves. So like trying to sort of like pick up from that.
Like when Galileo dropped the orange. So I'm sympathetic to Al's view about the piano on this. I don't actually think it's as accomplished as the last one. I think it's a bit more straightforward, and I did wonder if it was actually Marcia Schofield playing piano on this parts of it. But obviously I'll bow to the wisdom of the group on that. And then the drums just don't do anything, do they? They just do a beat all the way through with there's no signaling of any change whatsoever. So it is a bit lackluster. In general, and I'm not saying it's the best thing since sliced bread, but I did enjoy it listening to this, because that opening lyric made me laugh, and I enjoyed the thought experiment of David Bowie and Marky Smith, what that dynamic would be like.
Brilliant. Yes,
that's all I have to say. You may continue.
What about Tim?
He has fine.
Reason.
Have I not read this already?
I have.
I'll read it again. Fine, but a bit basic, and sort of like a less accomplished version of Mark'll Sinkers, replacing atmosphere and gravitas for lounge and cheese. Lyrics are funny in places, but don't make it anything worth listening to, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've not heard that, but to be honest, this is as insipid as the song. But let's have a listen.
He really needs to pull his fucking thing right, doesn't he?
Listen, he's trying. Not everyone can make it through the
very trying. He's very trying.
Aye,
very trying.
Working
you don't have
hard.
to get bombarded with these fucking messages from a disembodied voice.
Listen, let's take a vote. This should be an easy one. Mark'll Sinkers, or whatever that other thing one's called. Ezra, which way Which way are you going?
Mark'll Sinkers.
Good lad. Phil?
Mark'll Sinkers.
Aye, Alistair.
Mark'll Sinkers.
And likewise from me and Timothy. I already make it clear.
Oh yeah, Mark'll Sinkers.
It's a route. It's a route. And we come to the last showdown of the evening.
Right, before we play this next one,
yes,
let's get a cover through. Let's put a cover through just to wind Alistair up.
I think there's 5 covers gone through already.
Who paid for this party political broadcast?
My name is Phil Ruby, and I approve this message.
Loads of covers have gone through, at least 3 or 4. I'm going to find out which ones they are while you're playing this. Go on.
All right.
A magnetic wave of sound, with a wave of common circles, glisten its way around. See the people all in line, what's making them look at me? Can't imagine that their minds are thinking the same as me.
Indeed. Well, it's beautiful. It's nice, but is it necessary, Ezra?
Yeah, I really love this one. It's one of the full covers where I think I might actually prefer their version to the original. I mean, I do like the drumming on the original, but like the kind of vocal harmonies are quite a big turnoff. And luckily, there's no multi-tracking of Marky Smith's voice on the cover. Although maybe there should have been. That's an interesting thought experiment to ponder, and I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, really nice.
Indeed. The auto-tune, he can get Ann Coates in, who was the backing vocalist for the Smiths, you remember. What does Alistair think? That's what's really on all our minds.
Yeah, it's covering it. And I don't think it's as good as the original by a long way. It sounds like they kind of like diluted it, missing loads of detail. Just that like simplified version of it. It's like they couldn't be asked. But yeah, the song title, like any other grass grow, kind of there's certain bands that were around, like Athletes, Coldplay, Travis. They always used to sort of like describe as being like the sound of grass growing, because that's about as interesting as it got. But yeah, it's a cover and not a brilliant one.
It is a cover, not a brilliant one. But from my research, I think we've actually put 6 covers through. Yeah, anyone want to guess at what they are?
It's like my best efforts.
Well,
is the Monks one gone?
Fun of Love.
Fun of Love went out, sadly, but
Boston Music.
It went out as well.
Piggle Die went through.
That's a crime.
Higgle Die went through. I Come and Stand at Your Door. Ibis Afro Man, which I'm counting. Not really, can't really count that one.
That's not a cover.
No, okay. Come and Stand at Your Door, Piggle Die. Popcorn double feature, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, which is trad, arranged fall, and Jerusalem, which is, debatable. Yeah. But
that's also not a cover.
Put a few.
No, I'm with Ben as well, no, sorry.
Well, this piece of shit's not going through, so you can fucking shut up right now. So, what do you think of this?
This is fun. This is fun. There's loads of energy. I think you'd be very harsh on it, and Al, to be fair. I think it's straight from the get. It's loads of energy, but it is simplified. But it's simplified for the best reasons. I think, just to give it a bit more energy and a bit more.
The incompetence of the musicians.
It's rocking and a rolling. It might be a bit Sugrass. Do you know what I mean? It's produced a bit like, it's all that kind of sound effects in the background, just to kind of make everything pop a little bit more. But I think it's doing the business. It's fun. Sing along the chorus. I wouldn't be annoyed if they played it live and I was at the gigs. I think it's a fun song and they do a fun version of it.
Well, I would be annoyed pinching a living. It's quite nice. I mean, I love the original. I love the move. Love anything to do with with Roy
Wizzy
Wood,
Wiz.
Roy Wizzy Wiz, and his partner in crime in the ELOs. All that
Jeff
stuff.
Lynne.
Love all that stuff. It's a meaty cover of a decent.
Did you say you're more Roy Woods or Jeff Lynne? 'Cause
More Jeff Lynne.
I'm Team Jeff.
But I think I said a few weeks ago that fellow who does the history of rock music and 500 songs, he did.
I'm totally ignorant about all of this.
Roy Wood went on to do Wizard.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the move. I haven't looked into it.
So they were in the Idol race. The Idol race, which the F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T covered when they did that birthday, which was sung by that female vocalist for one of their P.O.D.C.A.S.T sessions, I think. So yeah, it's a very interesting story, and that followed the history of rock music and 500 songs. There's the whole kind of deal of Roy Wood meeting Jeff Lynne, and then it becoming ELO via the move and the Idol race, and Wood going off into Wizard and stuff. Brilliant. All that stuff is great. The Fall, do a fucking shitty photocopy of it in a pub rock style, and I enjoyed it a lot. Really nice, but yeah, why not? I'm not going to stop them having their fun. I just wondered what it would sound like if it was a duet with David Bowie, maybe Michael Jackson. It'd be fun. All right, Tim's got no time for this though. Come on, what do you think?
Well, it goes to show you what you know. A fine and fun cover of a good original, but it's only that. I like the psychedelic nods in the production.
Yeah, he's been altogether too nice tonight. I'm not really sure. Maybe he's saving up.
I think he's been getting some. I think that's what it boils down to.
Sounds like a man on the receiving end of some. He's saving all his irie up for this last song, though, isn't he? So let's have a listen. have we heard what everyone thinks?
I think so.
Good. Let's have a listen to "Taking Off" Ersatz GB, our second treat from that album this evening, 2011. Well, let's see what we all think about this song, shall we? What do I think?
Tell us what you think, bro.
What do I think? More meaty and generic lad stuff. Smith's having a go. He's trying to pull it out the fire, but even Eleni's phased keys cannot raise it from the dirge. Dull fall, the worst of all crimes. This is exactly why Ersatz GB has a bad reputation. Although I do like the lyrics. 6 p.m. Bonjela complexion. Take it off. Stress at 4 is for bed. Silence 6 p.m. Bonjela completion. True servant to stress. Take it off. To chef Ersatz invest GB 8 p.m. tidy Italian echoed camps. It's beautiful. He's having a go, is the lad Smith, but the rest of them, they're not helping him at all. Ezra, are you with me or against me on this?
Yeah, it's the one that stuck in my mind the least. Although while I'm existing in the same space as it, I'm always kind of thinking, oh, this is some pleasant kind of like space rocking going on here. And I just love the Bonjela complexion to completion arc. I think that's fantastic. And you know, I think I'd forgotten about Bonjela, so it was a nice way to be reminded of that little treat from back in the homeland.
Well, if
yeah, a pretty interesting track.
Come on, Al, we can pitch in together and send in some Bonjela.
Well, the thing is that he may very soon, if the news on the grapevine is anything to be heard of, he may be experiencing Bonjela far more than he ever wants to.
Oh, yeah.
The beauty, I love Bonjela. I love the taste of it. I don't even need ulcers to have a good old Bonjela rub. But you get some Vicks vapor rub on your chest, some Albus oil up your nose, some Bonjela on your gums.
Slathered in calamine lotion.
Exactly.
Yeah, and a bit of Bernsol to finish it all off.
Alistair, what about you?
What about me?
What about you?
Chip.
What about you, shithead? I thought it started off like really unpromising. You know, it's guitar riff that just doesn't sound promising at all, and really kind of like polite drums. And the synth was kind of like bog standard, but yeah, once they wire in the distortion, kick in with the guitar, and the drums get a bit more rowdy, it gets more interesting. And yeah, it does get a bit kind of like space rocky, kind of like some of the textures in it. You know, it's all right. It's not as bad as some of you fellas are making it out to be.
Listen, it's late stage in the game here. It's all to play for. There's no easy games anymore. Philip, love this, don't you?
When it comes on, I thought the Police had come on. It's the production on the tune at the start is very flat, naff, and a bit sort of boring. And then it does get better as it goes on. I'll give you that. But I just thought for me the music was just really passive. It's not like it doesn't take centre stage at any point. It gets louder and it gets noisier, but doesn't really do anything of note, anything of interest, nothing to grab me. I did think Mez was good on it. I think Mez does do a good showing on it. But when the guitar gets angry, it's like it goes into U2 mode. It's like it's channeling Edge, and then he drops like some guitar harmonics on as well, and it's like, it's just a bit too far that night. So I didn't really enjoy this, and not for me, this one.
It's not Greenway's finest moment, but he's not solely to blame. Nobody's bringing their A game. We all have off days. Come on, lads. We won't hold it against you.
It's an early finish, that one, isn't it? I tell you what, you finish down, you go home. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll not put this on the album. It's like fucking like, oh shit, this is better than all the other stuff we've got. Just imagine what went. Imagine if anything went in the bin for Ersatz GB. Oof.
Not much.
Has anything gone through off that record?
Monorail, girlfriend. Monocard.
Cosmos 7 went through, and Age of Chang went through. Age
of fucking Chang.
Age of Chang went through.
Jesus Christ, we've just knocked out Eleni's tracks and fucking Age of Chang's been open.
Age of Chang, it beat a summer song, get a summer song going. In the early
enjoy
days.
knocking that out next time.
Get a summer song going. Remember that? Do you remember that one from 10 years ago?
It's getting warmer.
Years ago, isn't it? Coming up for our second birthday. Maybe some of you lads will pay me for some of the things at one point as well.
Yeah, right.
I'll edit that bit out. We don't want anyone to know that you're all skin fliz.
See you next Tuesday.
I don't know what do we do now? Have we done everything? Tim's not told us what he thinks, has he?
No, I don't think he has. Do you want to know?
I do, very much so. Very much so.
This one is a bit psyche too, and a bit tricky for me to pin down. It's almost polite, but it does have a really good groove and some great Eleni work and atmospherics. I always enjoy it when it's on, but it's like it dissipates into the ether when it's done. There's some great vocal quirks on it too. Everything sounds really integrated on the recording, totally unlike a lot of the stitched together sounding stuff from the later era. Good, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems to be off in his...
I don't know how he's feeling though. Yeah, you go around and see him. Make sure he's all right.
No, just getting to someone else.
Just phone the council.
What? So we have to vote now, don't we? Although it sounds
I believe so. I'm not so sure. 70 episodes in, double digits.
It's double digits. Well done. I can hear the grass grow or taking off. Regretting not letting Phil switch these around at this point. I'm splitting my vote. These are both not good enough to go through. First time. Stand by it, Alistair.
Get rid of the covers.
Oh. Okay.
He's like an ideologue, isn't he?
What about Ezra?
Puritan.
I'm going for taking it off just because of the Bonjela complexion completion.
Oh la la, nice, Philip.
It's the wrong choice, but I can at least go along with your reasoning there, Ezra. No, I'm going for I Can Hear the Grass Grow.
So Tim to take it to the fingers.
He has gone. I Can Hear 1, Take Off 2.75.
So taking off somehow goes through.
Travesty.
So that means that taking off goes through, as does Mark'll Sinkers F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T versus Jobless mid-30s, and Craigness. Oh, it has been a good evening and some cup upsets along the way. How about you chaps? Let's indulge ourselves for a minute. What's your highlight of the evening?
It's a toss-up for me between Craigness and Couples. I really, really enjoyed listening to Craigness every time, but Couples is just corralled bonkersness, and I love every second of it.
Yeah, indeed. I'll grant you that. Ezra, what about you?
Yeah, Craigness. In my new house, which I hadn't really given that much time to until this week, and I think it's an absolute bopper.
Yeah, Craigness and Mark'll sync us really together as two low-key, wonky fall songs that I wasn't massively familiar with. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Alistair, about yourself?
Yeah, a couple of guns. I mean, like the first round was, two really strong songs, and the Couples versus Jobless mid-30s was quite interesting.
Indeed. So that's it for this season. Mostly in our regular episodes, we're going to wrap up next week with the final special. So that's all the way from Your Future Our Clutter, Ersatz GB, Remit, Sublingual Tablet, and New Facts Emerge. 5 albums to swim deeply in this week, if that's not too much. And
that's going to be a real challenge, actually.
A well-timed whimper.
What we'll do, I'll do some studio trickery. We'll do 3 next week, and then we'll do 2 the week after. How's that sound?
That sounds
Future Our Clutter, Ersatz GB, and Remit, and then we won't tell any of these listens, but we'll stitch them together at the end like one big old thing. And then we're going to try out that Patreon thing. If you can see here, we're going to have a go at maybe doing talking about a couple of live records that we may or may not use for a Patreon thing here. We'll do that in a couple of weeks.
That's a good idea.
But anyway, I'll send the list round, and thanks for all your time and energy and love. And I hope you make it.
That you're after, isn't it?
I hope you all make it.
Sweet, warm love.
Bye.
One day next.
Bye.